Ladies and gentlemen, today a review of Jurassic World Rebirth, the latest in the Jurassic World saga and the Jurassic Park movie franchise. Directed by Gareth Edwards and starring Scarlett Johansson. I think there's a lot to like about this movie for sure. I did have some issues with it, mostly having to do with some of the characters, and to be honest, the plot and story, I think, definitely bogged down a lot of the beginning of this movie. It takes a long time to really get going, and I think a lot of the characters are not very likable. With that said, I did enjoy my time with this movie for most of it, for sure. Gareth Edwards here does a really good job of blending awesome, good dinosaur action, some of which I think is some of the best in the series, to be honest with you. Besides what Steven Spielberg was able to accomplish in the first and second movie, obviously some of those sequences are some of the most memorable in all of cinema, for sure. But I think he does a really good job here of really doing well with the scale of the dinosaurs, the variety of the dinosaurs, and the variety of action here. And I do appreciate that they brought the original writer of the original screenplay for Jurassic Park to actually do this one, and you could feel that in the movie. It genuinely does have moments and vignettes that harken back to the old Amblin style of movie making, and it kind of feels nostalgic in some moments as well. I do think the movie starts off very slow and just becomes this kind of hodgepodge of just exposition dumping that I think really does bog down the beginning, along with the fact that I think a lot of the humor felt very flat. I think the script could have really used a punch-up with somebody who actually does some really good comedic writing, because there was just so many jokes that just felt completely flat in my audience. I do think there are some good ones towards the end, but I feel like that was just a key indicator for how bad the beginning of this movie really was. Now, that isn't to say that there isn't some redeeming factors with the beginning of the movie. It is just all set up and exposition dumping, and with a lot of characters that I did really enjoy. I think Scarlett Johansson does a great job. I think she does a lot with the role that she's been given here. I think that she wasn't given much to do with this role. There wasn't a lot here written for her, but what she does really does carry what she's been given for sure. But I think her story, which is highlighted with kind of getting the band back together kind of feel, just really didn't get the movie going for me. I think Mahershala Ali does a great job in kind of balancing this character who is both a kind of ship captain who is just kind of set in his ways and kind of reluctant to go into this whole excursion, but then is talked into it by Scarlett Johansson and the corporatist character. And I think it works for what it is, but it doesn't really kind of fall into what I really wanted from this movie until about the beginning of the second act, where we're introduced to a whole host of characters that weren't even in the beginning of the movie, and it's a family that is just kind of out there in the middle of the ocean, traversing the very dangerous waters, very close to the dinosaur island. And that plot I actually really enjoyed, and I thought there was a lot of fun there. I think these A and B plots definitely work well together, but I just think that maybe they should have been flipped. I think that the family characters should have been the beginning of the movie, and the mercenary characters should have just been happenstance and finding with these characters. But at the end of the day, when everything kind of culminates with everyone meeting at the island, I think that's when this movie really does get going. It sucks that it takes a long time for that to happen, but when it does, we are treated with some really, really well-made, directed set pieces with some fun dinosaur action, and this is where the really good parts of the movie do hang for me. And Gareth Edwards does a really good job of just doing what he can with the script that he's given and being able to highlight moments that really kind of bring the characters together. And that's when a lot of these kind of nostalgic feels for some older Amblin movies do come from for me. But ultimately, this plot really does fall apart for me towards the end, because it's a plot that is very paint by numbers when the corporatist character is all omnipotent evil and there is no redeeming qualities for him, and he's just there to do the thing he needs to do, and in the end he ends up ruining everything for everyone, and eventually the plot just kind of falls flat for me. I did enjoy a lot of this movie, but there is just so much about this plot that I just didn't connect with. I give Jurassic World Rebirth a 6.5 out of 10. I think there's a lot to like about this movie. Gareth Edwards does a really good job of directing dinosaur action. It does a lot with the script that was written by the original writer of the original Jurassic Park movie that really kind of harkens back to some of the old 70s and 80s Amblin style movies, but I think it's mostly bogged down by the fact that there's just a lot of unlikable characters here that you really don't want to follow the plot with. A plot that is just very paint by numbers for these type of movies, and in the end ultimately turns into essentially a clone of the first movie in ways that I didn't think were unique and fun, but That said, there is a lot of fun to be had in this movie, and there's definitely a lot here for someone who's looking for just some dumb, fun dinosaur action that you will find enjoyable for sure. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it.